Hello and welcome to Haunted Montreal's Spooky Story Sessions. I'm your host, Holly Rhiannon, and today I'm going to tell you all about Montreal's Auberge Saint-Gabriel. In the heart of Old Montreal, nestled among cobblestone streets and centuries-old buildings, stands a structure with a long, tangled history. Today, it's known as the Auberge Saint-Gabriel, a stylish restaurant and cocktail bar with more than a few secrets behind its walls. It's a place where the past feels close. The air is heavy with old stories. Some of them are proudly displayed. The building's age, its supposed claim as the first inn in North America. Others are whispered, passed from staff to guest, then guest to stranger. One story in particular keeps coming back, that of a little girl in a royal blue dress said to have died in a fire long ago. They say you can still hear her playing the piano upstairs, laughing, wandering. But just how much of this tale is real, and how much is legend? To find out, we need to go back, not just to the fire, but to the man blamed for starting it. The Auberge Saint-Gabriel is a quaint stone building in the heart of Old Montreal. Reeking of old-world charm, it's a popular attraction for tourists and locals alike. The building was constructed in 1688 by retired French soldier Etienne Troutot as his residence. The following century, Richard Dulong opened the Auberge Saint-Gabriel on the site, and it would go on to become the city's most legendary inn. Today, the building hosts a fancy restaurant, several dining rooms, and even a speakeasy. However, the auberge is also reported to be haunted. From ghostly piano music to the spirit of a little girl who allegedly burned alive during a fire, the Auberge Saint-Gabriel is said to be a hotbed of paranormal activity. The ghostly girl, wearing a royal blue dress, has allegedly been spotted and heard laughing on many occasions. According to its website, the Auberge Saint-Gabriel was the first inn to open in North America. This claim is based on receiving the first liquor license in the country on March 4, 1754. That statement appears all over the internet. Even the Bonjour Quebec tourism site describes it as the oldest inn in North America and the first to be granted a liquor license under British rule. It's good marketing, but historically questionable. European settlement in North America began well before 1754, and so did the construction of inns. In Quebec City, Jacques Boisdon was granted permission to operate an inn in 1648. A plaque still marks the site, calling him Quebec's first innkeeper. In Massachusetts, Concord's Colonial Inn opened in 1716. As for the liquor license, Montreal was not under British rule until 1760, which raises questions about how a British license could have been granted in 1754. If the inn's historical claims are shaky, it's fair to ask whether the ghost stories are too. Still, there's no denying the building's haunted reputation. Dozens of media reports and websites describe a little girl who is said to haunt the property. In an article for Exemplar titled 13 Most Haunted Restaurants in the World, author Christina Vantoul exclaimed that Auberge Saint-Gabriel comes in as number 7 on the list. She wrote, "Auberge Saint-Gabriel has had many ghost stories circulate within its walls. The enduring legend says that a child was burned in a fire and she still roams the restaurant. She can be heard playing the piano from time to time." In 2017, Global News covered the haunting. Reporter Matt Grillo stated, "Some insiders tell us there is a ghost of a little girl that was basically burned out in a fire and she can be heard playing piano from time to time." Canadian Rail Vacations also recommends dining at the Auberge Saint-Gabriel as part of a spooky train trip across Canada that visits some of the country's most haunted locations. This scary train vacation also invites clients to partake in the best Canadian ghostly experiences, including our haunted pub crawl. Concerning the Auberge Saint-Gabriel, author Brianne Byers states, "A little girl who is said to have died in a fire in the 19th century is the most famous of its ghosts and has been seen on the top floor. However, the most detailed version of the tale comes from student journalist Alex Hutchins. He wrote an article called A Glimpse of Our Haunted History for the Concordian on October 30th, 2018, where he identified the influential fur trader Joseph Frobisher as being responsible for the fire. Hutchins wrote, "The most notable tale is that of Joseph Frobisher, an affluent fur-trading businessman who acquired the establishment in 1809. Frobisher needed his business to survive the winter until, come springtime, European tourists would come and buy his fur. Frobisher nefariously ordered the neighborhood arsonist to burn down his competitor's establishment, and while he specified that the arsonist should be sure no one was in the building, 12 workers burned to death." Hutchins continued, "The arsonist begged Frobisher for money to flee town, and though he agreed, when Frobisher reached into his drawer to retrieve money, he instead took out a knife and stabbed the arsonist to death. During their altercation, the arsonist's satchel carrying explosives fell into the fire, and soon the entire establishment went up in flames." He added, "Standing on the streets, Frobisher wept in horror as his establishment was engulfed in flames. However, it was not for fear of losing his business. His 6-year-old daughter was still trapped on the second floor in the middle of a piano lesson with her grandfather. A small shred of hope emerged when Frobisher saw his father trying to hoist his daughter up to a window to get her out of the house. However, when the window was opened, the oxygen intake fueled the fire, and Frobisher watched his daughter and father be incinerated alive. A year later, Frobisher died from nostalgia, a term then used to describe cases where people speculatively died from either grief, fear, or suicide." Finally, Hutchins concluded, "On top of the countless inexplicable fires that have since occurred at the Auberge Saint-Gabriel, present-day staff have reported hearing a piano being played and the occasional laughter of a child." Given the murky backgrounds of various legends and ghost stories, it is often worth investigating them thoroughly. Were the authors of these tales taking poetic license, or was the haunted story based on fact? In the case of the Auberge Saint-Gabriel, a deep dive into its history is required. Were there actually any fires? Which years did Joseph Frobisher live on the site? Is there any historical evidence that he was responsible for arson? Joseph Frobisher acquired the property in 1777, which was part of a larger real estate complex that included offices, stores, and warehouses for the fur trade. 2 years later, at age 38, he married 16-year-old Charlotte Joubert, the daughter of a prominent surgeon who approved their union. Together, they had 12 children, though only 3 survived into adulthood. According to Hutchins, Frobisher died from nostalgia a year after his daughter's death in a fire, which would place the fire in 1809, as it is recorded that he died of natural causes in 1810. Records show that the only fire on the site occurred in 1768, when Sabrevois de Bleury was living there, suggesting the 1754 inn had a very short lifespan. After the fire, the property owner hired mason Jean-Baptiste Coquillard to make repairs and install a firewall between 2 of the buildings. Since this fire happened in 1768, it was 11 years before Joseph Frobisher even took ownership. At that time, he was not yet married or a father, which casts serious doubt on the popular story. Joseph Frobisher was part of Montreal's elite. If he had been responsible for arson, why was he never charged? Why are there no historical records to support these claims? And where did this story even come from? It's time to separate fact from fiction by looking at Joseph Frobisher's true story. Joseph Frobisher was born in Halifax, Yorkshire, England in 1748. He arrived in Montreal around 1763 with his brother Benjamin, and together they quickly established themselves in the fur trade. Their connections grew strong, linking them to powerful merchants such as James McGill and Simon McTavish. Like many in their circle, the Frobishers married into prominent French-speaking families. This helped solidify their influence in the fur trade, which thrived under the New France colonial system before British control took hold. By 1775, the brothers helped found the Northwest Company, a major rival to the Hudson Bay Company. This elite group amassed wealth and power through fur trading ventures across the continent. A decade later, Joseph expanded his holdings, buying land in Auberge Saint-Antoine and building his luxurious country home known as Beaver Hall. That same year, he and his brother joined forces with McGill and 16 others to establish the Beaver Club. Membership required spending at least one winter in the fur trade's demanding outposts. The club became known for wild raucous gatherings held at Beaver Hall and elsewhere in the city, where members sang voyageur songs, reenacted perilous canoe journeys, and partied with a gusto that included breaking bottles and glasses. By the late 1790s, Joseph Frobisher was ready to retire from the fur trade. In 1798, he left the Northwest Company and 2 years later sold his shares to Simon McTavish. He spent the following years investing and hosting Montreal's elite at his homes, Beaver Hall and what is now the Auberge Saint-Gabriel. Frobisher also served as a member of Parliament for Montreal East from 1792 to 1796. In 1800, he became a captain in the British militia and was promoted to major in the 1st Battalion. Among his duties was overseeing the demolition of Montreal's old fortifications in 1802. Joseph Frobisher died at Beaver Hall on September 12, 1810, at the age of 62. He was buried at the Christ Church Cathedral, which no longer stands. Years later, in 1847, Beaver Hall itself was destroyed by fire, marking the end of an era. So, returning to the claims that Joseph Frobisher hired an arsonist to destroy a competitor's warehouse in 1809, there is no evidence to support this. He retired from the fur business in 1798. Also, the grandfathers of Frobisher's daughter, one of which is said to have died in the fire, were already deceased by 1809. Joseph Frobisher Sr. died in 1763, and Surgeon Jean-Baptiste Joubert in 1798. Neither could have been giving her a piano lesson on the day of the supposed fire. In conclusion, while the Auberge Saint-Gabriel certainly has the look and atmosphere of a haunted place, historical records do not support the story of a girl and her grandfather dying in a fire. Like the claim of being the oldest inn in North America, this ghost story appears to be more legend than fact. That said, many staff and visitors have reported unusual experiences over the years. It's possible something unexplained remains at the Auberge, even if the traditional tale isn't accurate. The Auberge Saint-Gabriel remains a must-visit location. It offers a great menu, professional hospitality, and plenty of atmosphere for those who enjoy a hint of the mysterious. For those intrigued by other paranormal accounts, this is not the end. More research is underway, so keep an eye out for a sequel that uncovers the most convincing hauntings still present in the halls of the Auberge Saint-Gabriel. Her.
What'd she say?
Wonder if there's a little girl here and you'd like to say something else. We're gonna take a walk, but we'd love to hear from you, so you can come with us for now. You can't follow us. Thank you. Useless. We're gonna move on. That's it for today, but before we wrap up, we would love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated on all our latest content. Share your thoughts on this episode, and feel free to include any ghost stories of your own in the comments. While you wait for our return, be sure to check out the original blogs by Donovan King over at hauntedmontreal.yt, where you can also get tickets for in-person haunted storytelling experiences. And don't forget, we'll be back with a new video in 2 weeks. Until then, stay spooky.